Ministry engagement and support, that Lynn is your person, is part of ASG, which handles business matters for the PCUSA, a corporation. You talked about.
A corp.
Very good, thank you. That includes managing the Presbyterian Center at 100 Witherspoon Street in Louisville.
We're gonna have to take a field trip to there.
Yeah, you should
You
definitely
guys
come
would
visit and I'll show you
flip
around.
out. You guys would flip out if we all showed up together.
That would be great, but you need an appointment because if I'm not there, the security will not let people just wander in.
Oh, I mean, they see this, they would be like, oh, brother, come on in.
We're gonna schedule a tour when we go down.
Okay, so here are the kinds of things that ASG does: finance and accounting, treasury, information technology, internal audit, payroll, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, keeping the corporation going, keeping the business side going. Human resources, they have distribution services like mail and print, various things like that. Most of their work, much of it is internal, but there are some occasions where congregations might make use of services from ASG. So, here are some of the things that ministry engagement. I have mission here, and it used to be mission. I can't edit it right now. I just was trying to edit my own thing. It's actually ministry engagement and support now, and I'm just in the old. I'm having a hard time remembering to change it.
And that's the lady that we just saw.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. But I want to talk to you about risk management and legal services.
Yay.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
I'm excited.
No. No, it does not.
And we have 2 lawyers in the group.
Okay, so they are going to produce memos, resources that assist in knowing the law and best practices on a variety of issues like property, copyright, contracts, and other reasons that churches have to interact with civil authorities, personnel and employment, insurance and liability, safety issues, abuse prevention. If you need a letter to prove that your congregation is tax exempt, you call ASG. And this is taking a long time to open up.
Since it's taking a second, doesn't our tax identification number do the same thing?
It might, but if you, there are some times when people need to prove to some entity, they need proof from the denomination.
Yeah, like Walmart.
And
just to go in and not pay taxes at Walmart.
Okay, well, I was given a card from someone at my church that has Walmart at the top of it, and it's like a blank card. You have to write in the church's information, but basically, if I need to purchase something for the church at Walmart, I just show the cashier this card.
And that may come through the denomination.
Yeah, I don't know
That's-
where it came
I
from.
think
So
that's
somebody
where the
handed
tax
it to me and said,
exempt.
here, put this in your wallet.
Well,
Yeah.
somebody took a tax ID form for the church to Walmart. Kroger, you gotta have that form every time and go to the customer service desk and be
No,
written down.
so do not shop at Kroger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just wanted to show you the legal resources manual. Unfortunately, this doesn't have a table of contents, but, okay, so basic organization, a bunch of stuff about property, and trust me, we get questions all the time about all of these things. Sometimes it is OGA you want to go to, and sometimes it is
What's that document called? Legal resource?
this is, legal resource manual. And in the PowerPoint I'm going to give you, when you click on certain things, it's going to take you to these links.
That's what we were told.
Yeah.
Oh, be nice.
Well, it worked this time in mine. Because here I am and I clicked on the PowerPoint. Deeds, what are you going to do with your cemetery? Any of your congregations have one of those?
No, thank God.
Oh, well,
Yes.
you're lucky.
Yep.
Because I've seen on the mid-council's email list last month, several questions about cemeteries.
Surveys, anyway, so we won't spend a lot of time with that, but wanted you to be somewhat aware that there is that available online. Let's see, what did I want you to see under this other one? Creating Safe Ministries. They do a lot about abuse prevention, and you would like to think you don't need this. You do. So how to develop policies, prevention, various things like that. There's a whole website, it's called Creating Safe Ministries, but there also is some information in the Legal Resources Manual. There also this is Safe Ministries primarily around abuse, but then they also, our general counsel is very in touch with the FBI, and there are churches that get attacked by hate crimes, and then of course shootings and all the kinds of things that make the world dangerous, unfortunately. The legal resources can help with some of those things. So just wanted you to be aware of that. Global language resources, that is the area of ASG that provides interpretation and translation into Korean and Spanish. I didn't always know this, but translation is taking this words on the page and putting words on the page in Korean or Spanish or other languages, but those are the two kind of, in addition to English, that are more of the designated Presbyterian ones. And interpretation is if I'm speaking and somebody who only speaks Spanish needs to know what I'm saying, then it's more of the verbal kind of thing. The General Assembly provides interpretation at the GA and for some other events. So we have interpreters. Every word that's spoken gets interpreted into Korean and Spanish for those commissioners and advisory delegates who need it. And if they want to speak, then it's going to go the other way. If a commissioner who only speaks Korean wants to talk about a particular item, then everybody waits until the Korean interpreter tells the English speakers what that is. But you also might have a need to contact them, to contract their services. Suppose that, do you have a Korean congregation in this presbytery? There are a number that do. Actually, there are, you won't need it as much as some others might, but you may come across a situation and you can contact them. How would we get services this way? Or you have a refugee family coming into the community, for example. And then research services is also there to assist with needs you may have as you're doing mission study for your congregation. Church Trends will tell you, we take the information that you all give to your presbytery to give to the General Assembly, and then it can tell a lot of stuff about your congregation and its history, and also demographics in your community to try to help you figure out what your mission focus might want to be.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely. Say as many things
Have
as you
all
want.
of your sessions, if you're on session, approved your statistical report for 2023?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. I remember it being discussed.
But I just know there are some churches that's not on their radar screen and they don't ever do it. So I just lift that up as that is important because it also affects the presbytery's numbers. Okay, sorry.
No, that's
Public
great.
service announcement.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the important thing here is that you connect this stuff with what you need. So Church Trends, there you go. You can, learn all about that and,
I like that graphic.
yeah. Combines congregational data, regional and national Presbyterian data, and also demographics from just your community. So you may find connecting with research services is also helpful.
If you're writing grants, you can get some good information off there.
Good to know. Yes, it is, madam.
Well, I'm sorry. I even wrote one, but I'm never doing it again. Ever.
You're a crazy person.
Can you go back and pull up one congregation so they can see what kind of information they can find on their the last 10 years of their congregation?
Let's do it. All right. I don't ever do this, so. Congregations, churches by name.
Yeah,
It's the Bream.
Breen Memorial.
Oh, the road, green,
There.
there we go.
Okay. Your pen, your presbytery, your synod, where you're located. Membership as of the end of 2022, 115.
And 4 years at a glance is no longer available. Darn.
What?
4 years at is it?
I can't see what you're talking about.
They used to give you 4 years.
Oh, at a glance.
At a
I thought you
glance.
said 4 years neglected.
No, 4 years they used to have you could
They
look
say
at,
4 years at a glance is no longer available, but you can contact
Yeah.
research services and get that information.
is there any way to switch it to 2022 data since they haven't posted the 2020, that is the
That's
2022?
2022.
Why is nothing else there?
Well,
We certainly don't have any of that.
This is the last year available.
Yeah, but it's 2022,
and zeros.
there's a lot of zeros there, Randy.
The
Maybe your
10th
church is like my church.
Can we try another church?
They
Okay,
won't
so
let
they
me
didn't
submit
fill out
financial
the.
stuff.
That's
the-
what it looks
This
like.
kind of information.
Our
They-
First Presby St. Albans, because Andy's really good at doing statistical reports. and
Randy.
stuff.
Did you hear what I just said?
Mm.
Said maybe your church is like mine. I'm responsible for submitting the report,
Yeah,
but my session won't let me, submit the financial stuff. They just tell me not to.
yeah, there we go.
No,
Right.
No, we don't do that. But
Oh,
I
look
don't
at your
know.
church.
I don't know why it's not.
But why do you not do the whole report?
I see
I
it.
have no
I know
idea.
exactly how much we have.
Yeah.
Because the other thing would be, I bet if,
It's
I
a
bet
little
if
far
they,
away,
I bet if you
sorry.
haven't turned it in, it just repeats your membership from the previous year.
See if we did the per capita for what year was this?
Yeah, but I just find it hard to believe that we haven't.
Yeah,
completed
per
that
capita.
stuff.
Pay $2,975 per capita in
You
2022.
go.
Well, we have really been harping on per capita and I think it's $30.05 or something is what I paid last year.
Sure, do it if you want it. If you don't want
Per
it.
person.
Can we look one more, can we look at
Yeah,
River Long?
absolutely.
It couldn't get me any worse than
Do
ours.
it.
Because I think this does highlight, and makes you aware of what is your clerk doing or not doing.
Oh, our clerk is amazing.
What do you want to look at?
Riverlawn, Riverlawn. That one, well, yeah.
Membership as of end of 2022, 71. Regular contributions.
What church is this?
This is Riverlawn, this is Riverlawn.
Per capita, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
6 elders, 1 deacon.
One
So-
deacon. Oh, on the board, on the session, right? Or is
No,
that,
it's a separate,
Do you have,
you mean out of the whole church?
do you have a
Mhm.
diet?
Oh, yeah, that's not accurate.
Currently
We have-
serving.
No, we have several.
but they can only go with what information is typed in.
Gotcha, okay.
They can't create anything.
And maybe that year you.
Anybody else want to look real quick?
Oh,
Yeah.
for funsies, new Second Presbyterian Church in Huntington.
I know, I'm taking time
To see
away,
if,
but
I'll
No,
let you
that's
see
all
if any of the information I get to put in is accurate. Cause I've been doing it for 5 years now.
Because I wanna look at comfort.
Well, second is, I don't know how they, okay. There we go.
On our
That's the better way
church
to
sign,
do it.
It's two
it's-
ND.
Well, that's our email, but like on the building, the formal name is spelled out.
Okay.
SCCO.
yours is there,
Yep,
except
15.
not the financials.
They won't let me.
Interesting.
I'm the one person I know that I will completely disclose every financial, anything, anybody ever wants to know, cause I don't think there's any
Huh.
harm.
Okay,
but they won't let me, and so I try to show them respect.
Okay.
I call them jerks for it, but I still obey.
Okay. Anyone else want to see theirs?
Yeah, do comfort, please.
What, comfort?
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am.
I expect if I come to your church, I'm gonna get lots of hugs.
Comfort,
Which
West
one?
Virginia.
I think we should all visit each other's churches just
I
for
do
fun.
too.
Yeah, they didn't report.
There's comfort.
So because what happens is, because when you start your statistical report every year, it starts with the previous year's membership.
Yeah.
Okay, can you do March 4th?
Of course.
Because I just said we reported and now I'm thinking maybe we didn't.
You're not the clerk.
And if you haven't reported, if you get that information to Maureen Wright Monday or Tuesday of next week, she can report it for you.
What the actual world? They're both getting whippings.
So if you reported it this year,
Right.
it won't be in here
Yeah.
now.
Right, and I really think she did, but I can ask her.
This is for 2022.
So you, yes, clerk's of session report, or, secretaries, somebody reports to the presbytery kind of puts it together, sends it to the office of the General Assembly. And there are gonna be some lags this year too, because our staff person who does this is on temporary leave, so, it's gonna be a little bit,
And it's all
Slower.
online. And it used to be they sent you a paper report that you sent back in. And so some folks are intimidated by having to find it online, fill it out, et cetera. But Maureen is always willing to help you do that.
Yeah, so would I. I mean, it's not that hard.
So,
I'm
Help
actually
people.
glad you asked us if we did. I sent a text to Chris because our clerk at the moment is very ill.
oh,
So I'm glad that you said that. That will keep it on his radar.
So we should have turned it in for 23.
the deadline to turn it in was February 15th. But Maureen still has access. The rest of us don't. And it can be filled out by clerk, pastor,
Deadline just passed.
yeah, it's supposed to be approved,
has to be, yeah,
approved by the
supposed to be
session.
approved by the
I
session.
can't give that pastor any more jobs to do. He will explode.
Well, and it's something, if you haven't gotten it done this year, just help your sessions look forward to next year.
Man, we were talking about it last session. I mean, I think it's been done for 2023.
That's our
And it may have been, yeah,
Well, if it's that,
I just.
it's still with the presbytery at this point, and
Right.
it won't go into our system for a bit, because processing and stuff like that. But you were right, if you don't, it says you had 115 members. If you actually have, 90 or something like that, then that's 25 members that you're paying per capita on, or you're not paying per capita on, but the presbytery is supposed to pay per capita on. But it goes from 2 years ago, because the General Assembly is every 2 years, the budgets are based on what we know from before, and so there is definitely a lag. But you want to keep up with it to be accurate. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Comfort is that,
I'll have you
that
know that
thing
number.
because people are probably
Good.
trying to trim
Membership, it was
the
13 on
rolls
there?
to be more accurate.
Awesome.
And not somebody who's been a member all their life, but hadn't attended for 30 years, you knock them off the rolls and they get all open arms.
That is the truth in the matter.
okay.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Presbyterian Mission Agency. Now, Lynn talked about some of these things, but who has a Bible with them?
I almost brought mine this
I have my
morning.
Okay,
iPhone.
could somebody please read Matthew 25, 31 to 46.
Go Sherry.
No, he's got the book open already.
Is that memorized, right?
The mission agency has organized its work around Matthew 25 for the last several years.
So real quick,
And this particular parable, the parable of often called the sheep and the goats, or the Last Judgment in Matthew 25.
31 to 46?
Correct.
Okay. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me. Then he will say to those at his left hand, You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick, and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will also answer, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteousness into eternal life. Word of the Lord.
Thank you.
That's the verse that I made that poem on, that I shared yesterday.
Okay, so I'm going to let you hear about Matthew 25 directly from Diane Moffat.
Greetings, friends. I am Diane Moffat, President and Executive Director of the Presbyterian Mission Agency. By now, I hope you have heard about Matthew 25, a sound biblical and theological basis for the Presbyterian Mission Agency's mission work plan, which focuses on building congregational vitality, dismantling structural racism, and eradicating systemic poverty. Matthew 25 originated in 2016 when the 222nd General Assembly passed an overture for the Presbyterian Church USA to be a Matthew 25 church. The focus on Matthew 25 was underscored again in the General Assemblies of 2018 and 2020. In Matthew 25, particularly verses 31 to 46, the story of the sheep and goats, Jesus makes clear that what we do matters to God. How we treat the least of these is important. Jesus counts himself among the least of these. He also uses the phrase to speak of his disciples. As disciples, we are called to continue the work Jesus began, speaking truth to power and building a world where people are no longer marginalized. When we engage in the work of proclaiming good news to the poor, sight to the blind, and liberty to the oppressed, we may end up hungry, thirsty, naked, sick, in prison, and in need of welcome. As we work to change systems that cause human suffering, we too are part of the least of these. Matthew 25 reminds us that our work is not in vain. That is why the Presbyterian Mission Agency's focus to build congregational vitality is important. We are called to share the good news of Christ in word and deed. Congregational vitality is the embodiment of that good news in Christian principles and practices that nurtures and leads believers in congregations to actively engage the world, following Jesus and making disciples and doing the work necessary to build God's kingdom. A question to test a congregation's vitality is this: who would miss your church or congregation, besides the people who are now a part of it, if you were to stop your ministry? Congregational vitality intersects with the PMA's focus to dismantle structural racism. You may recall when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He said to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. Racism is a sin against God and neighbor. Structural racism is the normalization and legitimization of an array of dynamics, historical, cultural, institutional, and interpersonal, that routinely advantages people who are white while producing cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for Black, Indigenous, people of color. Dismantling structural racism requires committed followers of Jesus Christ to fearlessly apply our faith to advocate and break down the systems, practices, and thinking that underlie discrimination, bias, and prejudice. The third focus of the Presbyterian Mission Agency's work is to eradicate systemic poverty. And of course, this focus also intersects with congregational vitality and racism. Systemic poverty is a lack of material and social capital to ensure basic well-being. It's a human construct, just as racism is, designed to exploit people through laws, policies, practices, and an array of dynamics that lead to the perpetuation of an impoverished status. Systemic poverty requires that we do more than offer a compassionate response to people who are poor. We must address the root causes of poverty by acting on our beliefs and working to change laws, policies, plans, and structures in our society that perpetuate economic exploitation of people who are poor. We are asking your church, mid-council, or group to join us in being a Matthew 25 church. Matthew 25 helps us to connect and unite the Presbyterian Church, creating a spark that energizes and joins us in our common mission together. Matthew 25 gives us a language and a lens for doing mission together. It shows us our understanding that as Presbyterians, we are saved to serve. The hopeful outcome of Matthew 25 is to increase the spiritual energy, increase the impact of our church in the world, increase new disciples, and participation in ministry and worship. We are already seeing these outcomes. The momentum is up. The invitation is being accepted by numerous churches, mid-councils, and groups across our denomination to be Matthew 25. So I hope you are as excited about being a Matthew 25 church as I am. I hope you are ready to work with others and to help heal God's people as we look at systems. Systems need to be fixed, not just people. I thank those who have already made the commitment and will pray with and for those still discerning the invitation to join us in being a Matthew 25 church. And my friends, if you need resources to help you in your discernment process, I invite you to visit the website. There are Bible studies, worship resources, film guides, videos, a frequently asked questions brochure, and a Matthew 25 hymn and reading list for each focus of the Matthew 25 vision. These resources are intended to invite you into this gospel work by identifying the entry point that you might consider for your faith community. Once you have made the decision, the next step is easy. Go to the website and sign up your congregation and council or group to be a Matthew 25 entity. Now, if you want to learn more about the Matthew 25 vision, please contact the Mission Engagement Advisor for your area by going to this website. I am also available and would be delighted, along with other staff members, to meet in person or virtually with your church, presbytery, synod, or group regarding Matthew 25. I want to thank you in advance for helping to connect and unite all Presbyterians in our common witness to bear witness to Jesus Christ. Together, we are being a Matthew 25 church, and I'm grateful for that. Grateful for you. Thanks for listening.
Two
She's like a
questions.
fun gal.
Yeah. She talked in Presbyterian last year.
I think it was 2021.
I have two questions.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I'm sorry if this is ignorant.
No.
Because this is new to me. Number one, how long has this Matthew 25 been out for? And how will I know if my church is a Matthew 25 church?
The General Assembly in, I think this 2016, made the commitment. They started with the programming around it later than that, so 2018-ish, 2020, something like that.
And I think Diane was called in 2018 because she was approved at the General Assembly we attended.
That makes sense. Okay, so Matthew 25 map, and so to answer your second question, how do you find out? I went and looked. The Presbyterian of West Virginia has not made that commitment.
Oh.
There are 12 congregations in the state. I don't know if they're all in the Presbytery, but that's,
We are, Bream is, I think Dunbar is.
Dunbar is, Clifton is, Ronsford is, First Charleston is.
okay.
Presbytery here really hasn't lifted it up very well.
Okay. Why is
We've-
that?
I do not know. Ask Randy.
Well,
Well, because I encouraged Ed and leadership team, he didn't get the sense really encouraged that.
well, we did have her come and speak.
Mhm.
We have talked about it, but I actually raised the issue of whether we should become a Matthew 25 Presbyterian. That was discussed, but I just think it fell by the wayside with all the other things we were doing, and now with the discernment we're doing. I mean, maybe it's something that will come out of the discernment, but, yeah, we
Get to
don't.
Well,
West Virginia.
And
Okay.
2 years, in 2021, before GA staff could travel again, we had a number of folks from the denomination who spoke about, it was on Zoom, and had somebody from each aspect of this do a piece of it. We have Brian Coulter's coming in May to do a toolbox course on being vital today is the name of it, but it's the vital congregations piece. So we've incorporated it somewhat, but just haven't taken that.
Yeah, I think some of the components of it have been talked about and been part of it. And those of us in the church have connected with other churches that are Matthew 25, and we've done reading on it and things like that. But as a broader presbytery, I don't know what the reasoning was, or if there was ever any spelled out reasoning why we didn't do it as a presbytery so much as a question about whether or not when we decided or when we discerned what God was calling, is it something we want that will be a top-down sort of thing?
And I think that, because I was gonna say, that there was conversation, I think it was the sense of we don't wanna just do it name only.
And yeah, we don't want to say, this is what you're going to do.
Right.
Because our churches don't like.
Mountaineers are always free, that is the
Yeah.
statement.
So maybe I'm not understanding it thoroughly, but I mean, it sounds like a wonderful thing. Why wouldn't everyone want to claim to be a Matthew 25 church? I'm not understanding
Well,
this,
it's
I
all
guess.
voluntary. To become part of the program is all we're talking about. You can live what Matthew 25,
Are there downfalls to becoming part of the program that would discourage someone from doing it?
not to my knowledge.
Well, and when Clifton looked at it, they thought, we're already, in terms of our outreach, we're already doing a lot of this. Because I don't know how much, but Clifton isn't focusing really on eradicating they're not focusing on the systemic, but they're focusing on how can we reach out to those who are in need.
So there are bound to be other churches that are in the same kind of situation mine is, whereas
We are
I've
not
openly
Matthew
said that,
25 church.
like, the one thing that we have to focus on right now, if we're gonna do any kind of ministry at all, is making sure we can keep the doors open. We don't really have room. I mean, you hear me talk about going out and doing things, and I've even initiated outward missions, like simple things, like taking lemonade out in Huntington. Hey, can I pray for you today? Here's some lemonade. But beyond me and one other person at my church being able to do that, everybody else is just kind of shut down.
Right.
They don't want to close the church if they can help it, but they got, honest to goodness, you can look at them and say, they got nothing left. Like, they have worked so hard through their lifetimes to keep the church going. And they, on one hand, they've been waiting for people like in our age group and stuff to like come in and say, okay, look, I got it. Let me. On the other hand, they're like, have had so many people come into the church and say, I'll help if you let me. And then all they do is try to turn the church into their own thing. So they're skeptical. And, you know, then there I come looking like this. I'm like, if you let me, I'll help. And I have. But they're playing tug of war with me. It's like, well, but we don't necessarily want a bunch of other people that are like the other people that have used us to be in here and just use us more. I'm like,
Do you have a sister church you compare with? Who's your sister church in
I
Huntington?
mean, like Huntington and the surrounding areas is just full of Presbyterian churches, but they're really bad at working together. And there's a select few of us that represent other churches that are saying that crap's enough, and we put a band together. And we go to the different churches, and I'm not kidding. And we've played at different Presbyterian churches, and there's two ministers, myself and Rodrigo Almeida, and then there's one guy, Nick Blaine, who's going through Presby Prep, and we're trying to urge him on. But like, you have a very heavy sense of people that are willing to do ministry on some level, and we're out going around trying to like bring some togetherness amongst the stuff, but it's very slow going, and so I think it's not as much as people would push the idea away per se, like, oh, well, this is it, but it's more of like some of us are just flat out in survival mode.
And I think survival mode clouds it, and I think where our idolatry really shows up is in our buildings.
Please, and thank you. It's,
Because, yes, we'll do something with some other church, or we might even merge with some other church as long as we're gonna keep our building.
Yeah.
It's in our building, right?
Seriously.
I've heard that.
Well, and I think part of it, is the wording of it where it says, you know, we're going to attack systemic racism, and we're going to attack, the root causes of poverty. And for some congregations, that seems overwhelming.
That's triggering.
When you say, I'm going to try to meet the needs of people who are in poverty, that is more something that
In
some of
line
our
with
smaller
their-
congregations can grasp. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about, the root causes of poverty, to me, that says something different. You know, we're gonna try to get some money together, and we're going to have a training program for people,
Right.
or we're gonna, you know, set up, you know, some kind of shop where people can, you know, learn skills or something like that. And I think it's because of that wording, and I don't disagree with it. I mean, I think those are things we should do as the church, but it seems too big for some of our congregations.
It is big and it's undefined. It's undefined what you would do, what you would actually do in each, and its structures are different in each
In each area.
community. The infrastructures that hold racism in place are somewhat
I
different.
think if you go on the website and you explore the Matthew 25
Right.
information,
The
there's a lot of recognition of what you're saying, and expectations aren't, you're gonna do all that, not gonna eradicate poverty in your community. Nobody's saying that, but I think it's somewhat of a, increase awareness, give you potential resources, and help you think through how any of these, and not necessarily all of them, maybe one of them might help you.
Congregational vitality.
I mean,
for
there's a
example.
lot of people looking for ways to make their congregation more vital.
Yeah.
And if that's something you choose or something that's the need of your church, I think you fit this. You're not obligated to do anything. But nevertheless, it opens up these resources and ideas to you that may be helpful. I think that's really
And there,
most
well, I think that's important, but to piggyback off what Susan was saying, it's absolutely true, because I'm faced, like I was speaking last night, and this words from the pews, I feel attacked because I'm white, I feel attacked because I'm not racist, but now I have to keep hearing it and carry it, I'm not a white supremacist, I'm not a person who won't help those in poverty, and the word they give back to systemic this, and you must that, is I feel attacked. I was born this way. I was born white. so what?
But we've
So-
also, and I think what this is looking at is also saying, we've got structures built into society, we've got
Yeah.
structures built in the church.
I'm not saying I don't agree with it.
Mhm.
I'm just saying,
Mhm.
you're looking at that pushback to change, and that it's been said and done and said and done and said and done to the point that they just are exasperated with it.
But I'd also
Some people
encourage
really
you,
feel
there are tons of
attacked.
resources on the website.
Mhm.
In terms of Bible studies that are there, there are worship resources. There's a lot, some of them were available in print that I picked up, but everything's available for download on the
I
internet.
sent the link in our chat.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to just look at it.
You were like our support
Good
staff
stuff.
right now.
Biggest
Do we have
obstacle
everything?
to being successful is, and every time I say the word white fragility, I have people just, reversal, and I'm like, you don't go and say, because I did this once, that's a perfect example of white fragility, is you're all angry that I even said that phrase. That's my husband. So I'm taking it from just a really small unit. How do I work out how I really feel about racism? I grew up in the South. I am racist. I was trained to be racist. I was brought up racist. I'm not prejudiced. I was not trained to be prejudiced by my mother. But there's family history, and it's really a monster to dismantle.
And I think Waking Up White is a good introduction to it.
Yeah.
If you haven't read the book Waking Up White,
Well, that's kind of my
it's
upbringing.
it's a memoir, it's an easy read, and I think it was recommended by the co-moderators in the General Assembly,
Yeah.
Jan
Denise
Edmondson and,
Anderson.
I can't remember who she was
Denise
with.
Anderson and Janet
Yeah,
Edmiston.
Yeah.
that's right, Denise.
Yeah, it's all very complicated and entrenched and, interrelated. But what they're trying to do with Matthew 25 is to say, okay, as a church, we want to be outward focused. We want to make a difference in the world. What are some of the major problems with the world and particularly our nation? And they've identified, the racism and poverty are things that are, they're entrenched. They're not something, again, today we're going to dismantle structural racism. It might take us, a week or two to do that. It's not that, but it is that being aware. And you're exactly right. When the white people, your congregation's not the only one. We're like, we don't want to talk about it. We're tired of hearing about it. And I think it was, Stephen Colbert or somebody who was saying, or Jon Stewart, imagine how hard it is to live with that. You don't want to talk about being racist. How about if you have to deal with racism coming at you all the time? And white people can choose to ignore it, but if you're a person of color, you cannot choose to ignore it because of the way it affects your life. And
Well,
every day, every moment,
in the sense of what black parents have to tell their black children.
right?
Because there was a children's book, Beautiful Black Boys or something.
Yes.
That we never think about. Things like, I don't remember the specifics of it, but, if the police, what to do if the police stop you, those types of things.
Right. And you're much more likely to get stopped by the police if
Yes.
you're,
Pulled over just because you're black.
Driving while
It's
black.
almost like they're looking, what's wrong on their car so I can pull them over. Your tail lights out. And then the attitude the defensive attitude, then they feel that they have justified their attack on them. It's really, really hard, especially when you don't come from a position of prejudice, but you do have the racism and it's ingrained in you, and you realize in order to overcome your own white fragility, you have to be willing to lay out your privileges and be willing to give up. There's stuff you gotta give up to do this.
And that's the hard part.
That's the really hard part, it's convincing people it's worth it.
it's very hard. And you can work on it personally. And, you know, racism is something that we who are white have the privilege of not paying attention to if it upsets us.
Right.
But if we want to love our neighbors, all of them, you know, and even if our communities are almost entirely white, we still have neighbors who aren't in the world. Anyway, that's basically what this is about. You may not have a lot of racial diversity, but I guarantee you West Virginia has poverty. So you all are aware of that. So it may be that those types of things seem more relevant.
Because you don't have to, if you become a Matthew 25 church, you don't have to like bite off the whole elephant.
Right, exactly.
Right. And congregational,
Susan, what?
congregational, you know, one bite, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a time? The congregational vitality connects with all these things. I think one of the quotes that you want to remember from what Diane said was, you know, if your church were to go away, who would care besides the people who are in it? If nobody would care, then why are you there? You know, and so how are you going to make your church vital enough so that you are making a difference not only in the lives of the people who are in it, but in the life of your community? If you're not, then, you know, re-examining your call. What is it that God wants you to do? And anyway, so, I mean, it may be using your building to serve your neighborhood. It may be like the family from Afghanistan being provided a place to live and integrated into that community. So it wasn't here, you know, here's a house, but there are other things there where relationships are being built, the community is being welcoming. Does that look like the kingdom of God? And yeah, so stuff like that. So you can, you know, we could talk about Matthew 25 more, but I want to talk later when we get back from lunch about a lot of specific programs that connect with Matthew 25 or other things. And some of them were going on long before Matthew 25, but it's, you know, these are ways that as a national church, we live some of these things out and we support you and your congregations. You're not going to want every one of these programs, but I want you to be aware that a number of them are there. If you, even talking about becoming Matthew 25 could be good for your church if you decide not to do it. But, you know, hey, this is the scripture. How are we doing that? Do we want to sign on the dotted line? I don't care. But are you living out that scripture in some way or another? Yeah.
That's good.
If I
That's a good way
understood
to
her correctly, she's saying that the denomination has basically said, we are a Matthew 25 denomination.
The General Assembly said that.
And when I confronted our pastor about what are your thoughts about being a Matthew 25 church, and I can't remember, said becoming, I may have said becoming a Matthew 25 church, and he said, well, we're the Presbyterian Church of the USA, we are Matthew 25. And I had, because I knew that my next statement was going to be, I realized we're doing a lot of those things, but I felt kind of shut down at that point, because then I thought, okay, well, he knows more about what's going on at General Assembly level than I can even imagine. I mean, this has been a real eye-opener to me, both learning how to use the computer and navigate the website, which I didn't succeed at half the time, but just seeing what all's out there is just amazing and overwhelming too. I mean, I felt like I was trying to chew up an elephant. So I'm just grasping it all.
Well, this is a big, broad overview, and I'm throwing a bunch of stuff at you, but, you know, when...
But that's what I ask you to do.
Man, y'all are rhyming like nobody's business.
No, it's good.
So let me just say, you know, let's finish up this particular conversation. The mission agency has resources to share for all these areas, as Randy's pointing out, And the other thing is they want to learn about resources that you may have that others could use. So becoming a Matthew 25 church means committing to one of these foci, or more than one, but saying, okay, we really want to work on this. We're going to be intentional about it. And, you know, we want to get out of survival mode, because if all we're doing is surviving, then we're so internal that we're not making a difference in the world. And are we growing spiritually? And then they ask people to submit stories about what they're doing that makes a difference in the community and the world. And so it's how can we help each other be more effective disciples of Jesus Christ? You know.
One of our keys is collaborating.
Yeah.
And with our,
Get out of our little rooms and collaborate.
with our first 3 Matthew 25 churches, they're located, I mean, one's where I live, one's here, and one's a little bit further west. And they started using Zoom to connect and support each other. Because I know we've got a woman who takes coats from our part of the county to Dunbar.
I think we've gotten help, I think we've gotten some help from Dunbar too.
All right, well, this is a good stopping place. Let's go to lunch, and then let's